Dave, how are you?
Hi, Al. How you doing?
I'm living the dream, man. I'm sorry. I'm not used to Teams, so I've been trying to figure this thing out for a little bit.
That's okay, but you have renewed my faith in mankind
Good.
that we are this adaptable, adjustable, malleable contingent of the human species.
There you go. You're saying it's better than AI. You see, we can start piecing stuff together. I appreciate that.
You don't know how close to the truth that you are because I don't know. I interface with a lot of people, whether they're coaches
Yeah.
or they are executives.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, so many people are so fascinated with that whole end of it that I find it difficult sometimes to get people to just be themselves. They are
Agreed.
so dependent on AI.
Oh yeah.
It's nuts.
I completely agree. It's crazy. I mean, we use it a little bit, but we use it more for like, we have an indoor facility in Orlando, which is like a
Yes.
30, I think it's like 34,000 square feet. So we have 4 fields. So we use it for more like sales stuff when we're trying to sell fields. But that's basically it. We don't use it for much else. So we're a bigger component on doing what you need to do and be human. So I
Yeah,
totally understand what you're talking about.
I get it. So tell me, I mean, where are you from originally?
Yeah, I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, so right outside DC.
Okay.
Born and raised there. Played every league, system, whatever you want to call it. I don't know why my video turned off. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what just happened.
I
Sorry.
don't know either.
My bad. I'm fixing it. There we go. So I don't know what this thing is doing now. I apologize. Not sure. You can see me or no?
Wow, that's quite a place you've got there.
Yeah, no kidding. Hold on. I'm trying to fix it. It's telling me there's no background setting. I didn't even put one on. So there we go. Okay.
There you go.
Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. I'm a 92 birth year. Um, Born and raised in that area. I always tell people the story. I was fortunate enough to find a coach that cares about development and doing the right thing. He was from Cameroon, went from France, had that whole background, and then came here. So I got lucky to find like a guy like that, because if I probably didn't, I don't know where I'd be today. And I played every level. I played DA. I mean, there was only really 3 leagues at the time, but I played in the DA. Went to college, played Division II, and then I went to Europe. I've been to Europe a couple of times. I went as a kid to Olympique Lyonnais, and actually the technical director is a very, very good friend of mine. His name is Joel Frichet. He's like a dad to me, actually. He's coming next week, so if you ever want to catch up next week, he's going to be in Orlando, and I can introduce you to him. He's been there for 24 years.
Been away a while, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'll be more than happy to introduce you. He's coming next week to visit me, and just been around good people like that I feel like know how to do. I don't want to say the right thing. There's probably multiple ways to do the right thing, but to educate and teach the next generation. So I've been lucky enough to have that education to a certain extent. I'm not saying that I'm the best in any way, shape, or form, but just trying to do my part to help educate the next generation, really.
Well, it's ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're part of this is everybody, whether you're a high school coach, our national coach,
Yeah.
whether you're in the women's game or the men's game, it's a work in progress. And all that right now is so accelerated because of technology, because of real time. I spent time in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
I was in the Navy in Bethesda.
Yeah.
In the early 70s, 72, 73.
Okay.
And then when I got out, I played the NPSL there 1 year before I went to college out in Colorado.
Sweet.
And played at a Division II school.
Yeah.
Like you. Where'd you go to school at?
St. Leo University.
Yeah, down in Florida.
Yeah, right outside Tampa.
You didn't play for Joel Harrison, did you?
He actually recruited me, but then I don't know if he got fired or he just quit. But then you might know the next guy, Keith Folk.
Yeah, I know Keith really well.
Yeah, so I played under Keith. Great, awesome guy, man. I love Keith. I mean, he's going through some stuff with his wife right now, but I learned a lot under him.
Yeah, it's a good guy. Joel worked for Butch Lawfer up at West Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I was the technical director in Texas for
Cool.
11 years before going to work with the national teams.
Yeah, I saw that.
And,
99, right? You were with 99?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my work, I have better perspective on it now. I mean, whatever I did, whatever Tony assigned me to do with winning that World Cup, really, my work was done before then. Mia Hamm played for me as a 14-year-old.
There you
She
go.
fell into my lap in North Texas, where I was going to grad school at Midwestern State. And around that time, she's older by 4 years. Carla Overbeck was in my first state team
Right. Okay.
when John Costa.
That's history.
Yeah. And so I think that was through the time the late 80s through 2004, 2005, I think that's where I contributed more to the youth national teams, either on the boys or the girls side. Clint Dempsey played for me growing up in North Texas.
When you get a chance, can you try to take a video?
Nicky Garcia. I mean, that was a pretty,
When you get a chance, can you try to take a video?
Northern Virginia, a lot of good players.
Yeah, a lot.
Of good. It's got its own nuances, like
course.
Texas does, where it's like
Both
going
of you
back
can.
to the time when Jack Sakala and all those guys were
saying on your
coaching in
phone.
Northern Virginia. Highly competitive, but highly
Me and him.
fragmented,
Yeah, yeah.
but some good freaking players came
Yeah.
out of it during that time.
And there's a lot of people that I always say this, like they got trapped and didn't get out. Same type of
Yeah.
circumstance. It happens all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's true.
there's plenty of guys that I
That's
played
true.
with that I know are just working a normal job right now, and I'm like, dude, you could, at least played college, right? But they never got they didn't know how to navigate it or whatever, and maybe could have done better than that. So you never know, man. It's hard.
No, and I've looked at a lot of social media, and I'll explain why. But you've created a little bit of this interface
Yeah.
with parents, but like part of the reason why you're so necessary is that coaches, for whoever is doing a good enough job, whether it's high school,
Yeah.
high performance youth, college, there's still a massive gap there.
Oh, yeah.
And as much as you're dealing with the interface kind of with parents, coaches ought to be learning from that.
Totally agree. Yeah, I 100% agree. Well, it's interesting, Dave. Like I'll be completely transparent with you. I only have a C license, and I actually decided I did the D license in 2016 after maybe 17. I remember one of the two. And then I was like, I'm never doing another U.S. soccer license again. I was so disappointed with how it was run and what they did, and I was like, I'm never touching it again. And the only reason why I did the C license was because my business partner was like, look, just go take the damn thing. And I'm like, we went back and forth for a long time. And I'm like, I just don't see the value in it. And the reason why, and I thought the C license now was better than what it was. I never took it before, but my thought process was they're not teaching people how to deal with the actual environment of what we have in pay to play. Like you don't know how to deal with parents. You don't know how to deal with the kids. Like the C license was like, hey, everybody's going to have a half field. And I'm like, dude, I don't have a half field. I have a quarter of a field. And there's just a bunch of little things like those nuances that just don't exist. And like there was, when I did the C license, I finished it in December. I had like 6 guys that will never, ever want to be higher than what they coach at. And they coach like U10 girls or U9 girls, whatever it is. And I'm like, they can't apply what they're learning in this course to the grassroots. There might be 1 or 2 things on a small scale, but they don't know how to deal with they don't know how to deal with parents. They don't know how to deal with U9 girls or U9 boys. What does that actually look like? And how do you deal with the training environment? And what should the training look like? And I'm just like, there's just so many little things that, we're just struggling with. And it's just frustrating.
Well, I started teaching and instructing in the U.S. soccer schools in '89 through about 2005,
Yeah.
6. And then, because of the climate around the Federation, And now you can see there's an overindulgence because I think coaches are practitioners.
Right.
You know, we're not theorists. Theory doesn't make jack squat for us, but unless it has an application.
Right.
So now, I mean, I went back and I did the grassroots stuff and the D's when I was still back in North Texas prior to coming to the association full time. And I was like, it's not practical.
Exactly. That's the best word that I could have said.
It's not practical. And I've had really good conversations with Didier Chamaron.
Right.
He knows we're different. Our education is different.
Right.
We are 70% on the field, assessments, interaction, interpersonal, learning how to manage the environment, learning how to manage information,
right,
learning how to manage interaction. Because whether you're talking about 10-year-old girls who are just grassroots players and they just want to have
right, a good experience, yeah,
or you're talking about the high performance kid,
mm-hmm.
you still have to interact with people, and the coach has to have a modicum of least of being able to observe,
yeah,
adjust, and some days walk away and go like, what's going on in there?
Yeah.
I'm not sure any of it got across.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's the realistic world of the coach at all levels.
Agreed.
Even the pros.
Right.
Even the national team coaches.
Yeah.
So I think that's where our education is different. And I'd like to share with you, if I may.
Sure.
This is our learning management system. It is a member benefit, Kyle. So if you're a member of the association, you're able to access this repository and resource of information. And it is, we're actually giving it a facelift right now. Some of that will be executed next week. But you can see that, like, this is the convention from Philadelphia, those sessions.
Nice.
You can access, they are animated. Some of this is player development, some of it is a little bit X's and O's. Some of it, we've utilized a bunch of different people in leadership and in the psychological realm, Dan Abrams and a bunch of different people, because we're not bought in to doing things one way. I think that's where the Federation is also gone. It's not only highly academic, but it's also a very one track
right
kind of methodology.
Well, it was actually funny. I had a friend of mine, she just did the B license, and me and her were talking about it. And she had to do a revision, and I don't know if she was telling me the truth or not, but what she told me was when she was building out of the back as the example, she didn't want the center backs, the 4 and the 5, inside the box. She wanted them outside the box. And she was like, she told me that the instructor failed her or revisioned her because of that. And I was like, and I was thinking there, I don't remember the coach's name off the top of my head, but the head coach at Fluminense, who has the new system, he would fail a U.S. soccer license because his thing is completely, it's relationshipism. It's completely different type of football. And it's like, if you brought him into the U.S. soccer environment, he would have failed because it's just against the grain.
Exactly. So I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, and I have colleagues, and they're not happy coaching in that environment. They're not happy teaching. Federation said, Dave, we'd really like you to take the instructor's license. And I'm like, it's a year long.
Right.
And I've been really honest with Didier, and we've had great conversations at the executive level, because once license renewal becomes a factor, we'll be in the track to deliver CEUs.
Okay.
There are Uber conversations going on with that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not so sure at this point in my life and in my career, I want to spend a year in a course.
No, yeah. Totally understand.
That I'm not like 1000% vested in.
Yeah, you're not bought into it.
Mhm.
I totally get it.
So, and it is the prerogative. And I've told Didier, look, the the prerogative of the NGB is to set the course in all of these areas, whether it's national teams, education. Right now, we have a dynamic, and I think he sees it. He's been here long enough. It's like, shit, this is not France.
Yeah, it's
This
not,
Germany is the size of Montana.
right.
So 18 Bundesliga 1, 20 Bundesliga 2, 7 states, 7 training centers. And just when I was back in Bremen last July with the BDFL, who does all the CEUs for the DFB, I mean, they know how different things are between being at Hosna Rostock or being at Munich,
Sure.
you know?
Right.
But for us to try and replicate that model here,
You can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you'd have to do it by region or even smaller than a region to make that even achievable.
yeah, and so that's why I came in 2 years ago and I regionalized our education. So I said the deliverability,
Right.
the accessibility, how it cut costs. You know, they're having the same issues in Germany because they said, well, if we didn't subsidize
Okay.
coach
Exactly.
education,
Right.
sorry,
No, you're right. I was going to say you're completely right. The cost is too high.
yeah, they said if we didn't subsidize, and at some point, like the Bs in Germany, the Bs, but above that, it's incredibly expensive.
Mhm.
And the other part of it is here, part of what they're struggling with, and I know they're having conversations at the executive level, is coaching education is incredibly restrictive based upon prior experience as a player,
Yep.
prior experience. Well, if you've got an A license, we're not going to let you take the pro. Okay, well, what are the standards for that? And now they're gauging and they're trying to guess like, what if somebody's coaching in college and they want to take the pro license? Well, are there legal ramifications that we tell them no, they can't?
Right.
What are the comparables?
There you go.
So we're very different, aren't we?
I would completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing.
I think this is what happens, Kyle, when you have people come from outside the country who think they know.
Agreed.
Who think, and then they come in and they go like, yeah, this is a lot different than I thought it was.
Well, I'll tell you this too. I think this will hit the same token, right? So, like, do you know Zach Crawford from the U.S. Soccer Federation?
Yeah, I know Zach.
Okay, so like when I did my D license, he was there, and I asked him because, of course, it was play, practice, play at the time. And I'm like, Zach, like, help me through this. I'm like, I don't remember the exact question how I asked him, but I was like, have you seen the average American soccer player? And he's like, again, he probably said no or whatever it was. Like, oh, he probably beat around the bush or something. And I'm like, they can't dribble the ball. They can't pass the ball. They can't receive the ball.
Yeah.
But then you're asking them to play. I'm like, you're setting kids up for failure. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And then he threw it a different way to me, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, we're just not going to see eye to eye. But obviously he has to follow what the federation says. But where I'm going with this is, to your point, is the guys at the top don't see what's happening on the day-to-day in grassroots. And I deal with, like, so I have a very small club. We have 9 teams. 90% of our kids, because I don't have MLS Next, I don't have ECNL, I don't have EA, I don't have any of these leagues. I do EDP and we do adult. So we were doing UPSL with I'm going to have 09s playing UPSL this season. But
okay.
My point to this is I don't get good kids. I get kids that cannot dribble, they cannot pass, they cannot receive a ball. So how am I going to put them into an environment where they have to then do even a play, practice, play? Like, we do such basic fundamental footwork just because they don't have the skill yet. And my argument always is 90 to 97% of the country, I'm not talking about the top teams, I'm talking about team 2, team 3, team 4, team 5 at clubs. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. Those kids don't have any level at all. And we're asking them to do stuff like play rondos and do these different types of things, which in theory is great. but if they don't have the skill, how are they going to execute? And it's so frustrating to me because like I sit here in the day to day with my environment. I'm like, my kids don't have level, and I have to try and tell parents what they should be working on. But they're like, no, I want my kid to play games. Okay, so what we started doing was we created a league that's 2v2 because I can't be putting my kids into 77 at U9, U10 because they can't execute just the basics. And it drives me through a wall. It's crazy what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's so frustrating.
But you're lucky because you recognize it.
Yeah.
Because like when I went and did my instructors, you know, they were. I mean, I didn't really know Santo Rivas.
Right.
I knew Hoppy and I had worked together, Steve Hoffman, but they treated me really well.
Right.
But I also did not. I didn't treat the situation with kid gloves. To your point, look, when a kid can't or won't lock their ankle, pull their toe to their nose, and strike a ball,
There you go.
how will they learn it in the game or in the tactical side of things?
Right.
You know, I understand the roadmap, you know, rhetorical questions, get them to think. But
Sure.
at the end of the day,
Right.
Jay Miller and I were just talking about this not long ago because we did a lot of work together. And it's like, well, eventually, if the kid doesn't get it, whatever it is,
Right.
individually on the dribble, get behind them. If they don't get it, or if they can't solve the problem, find a way in. Go around, go over the top, or
Yeah.
go through.
Right.
If they can't solve it, you have to show them.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all this stuff organically, it to me it kind of reeks of idealism.
Mhm.
You know, it's partly when you look at education right now. Think about what's happening in secondary education.
Oh yeah. No, it's
Some
terrible.
of that,
Mhm.
and you know, it's an interesting coincidence
Yeah.
that some of this is happening in sport too.
Well, like, so I was talking, you'll find this funny. I was talking to a guy today. He's like, I live in Spain, and this is what they do in Spain. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
I live in America,
Yeah.
and this is what the average American kid looks like. They come into soccer at 5 or 6. They've probably watched 1 or 2 professional games. They've never touched the ball in their life other than mom and dad telling them to kick it. So, like, they don't have any background. They don't have any experience, no heritage, no history. And then we're going to expect these kids to go to 77 in 1 year. And that's what's happening. Like in theory, I think you said earlier, in theory, it sounds fantastic. But
Yeah.
in practical sense, it's horrendous because we don't have the environment, we don't have the culture, we don't have the life experience of these kids to be able to do it. And the example I always give is, you know, it's actually ironic. Like I sat down with my parents before I started posting a lot of this content, and I was like, hey, you know, walk me through. Remember, like, teach me, like, what did I do? And the first thing they said was, at 3 years old, Kyle, we told you to kick it and pass it. And I'm like, there you go. I'm like, bingo, that's the exact problem. You should have told me to damn well dribble the ball, not kick it and pass it. So it's just little things like that, again, like it's such a huge fundamental problem. And I will never say I have all the answers. I will never have all the answers. But like you ever heard of a guy named Romeo Jozak from Croatia?
Yeah.
So I've never met him. I would love to meet this guy, but I bought his book.
I was just with him.
Okay. I would love to meet him.
I'll introduce you to him.
That would be
You know
fantastic.
what he's doing now.
Well, I last saw he was with Qatar, but I don't know about that anymore.
So I talked to him in April
Okay.
of last year.
Right?
I said, Romeo, I'm populating the content for the convention. I want you to come to Anaheim. I want you to do a field session.
Awesome.
That's on when he was with Croatia.
Okay.
So fast forward to October, November, Saudi Arabia is awarded the
World Cup.
FIFA Men's World Cup.
Right.
So up until then, he'd be working for the Saudis. They have invested $100 million
Wow.
in a player development project in Spain. Because here's what they figured out. You know, we can get Jordan Henderson to come, but he's not going to stay.
Of course.
So we will develop our own cadre of players, and then we will have them to populate into the Saudi Pro League.
Pretty smart.
We'll own
in theory. Let's see. That's a pretty smart idea.
that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, right.
Because if you got one Messi out of that or one Mo Salah,
There you go.
you go like,
Money.
what's the point?
Yeah, right.
So he calls me up and he goes, Dave, he said, I've just been appointed the technical lead for the 2034 World Cup
Okay, wow.
in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So he said, I want to change our plan. He said, I have a sport minister that wants to come, the women's technical director, the assistant coach for the women's 19s and 20s,
Wow.
the vice president of the Saudi Pro League, and the vice president from the federation. And we want to share our initial plan. He said, by the way, we'll pay for everything you have to pay for.
Wow. Fantastic.
So I said, bring it on.
Right.
So they just got through, Kyle, hosting the World Football Summit
Okay.
in Riyadh,
Nice.
which is very different. Very different. It's not the convention. It's Goldman Sachs. It's the enterprise of football in large part. So I had these Saudis walking around with the CEO and my COO and myself, and we sat down with the CEO.
Yeah.
Because they want the American market. I wanted them to see the convention because I wanted them to think about, they can put $100 million into Spain.
Right.
They can throw some change at us, and that might foster a really interesting relationship.
Right.
So that's what Romeo's doing now. He's the technical lead for the 2034 World Cup in Saudi Arabia.
That's awesome. Well, so
That's a big time job.
that's a ridiculous job. But so what was interesting was I happened to find his book on Amazon, and I was like, you know what? Let me buy this thing. I buy it, and I'm like, dude, this book feels like it's my brain on steroids. So I've read his Croatian Football Federation Development 3 times, and so when I was on my C license, I had an instructor. I'm trying to remember his name because there was 3 of them. My guy was Mark, who's the FYSA director of coaching, and then Loy. You know Loy? I can't remember his last name. Loy.
Yaxley? No, different one.
No, he's
No,
Peruvian.
I don't know who you mean.
Okay. Anyway, so I was talking to him, and the course finished or whatever, and I was talking to him, or it was our in-person meeting. I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, have you ever heard of Romeo Jozak and his thoughts or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I've read his book. And I was like, okay, well, his book says from U9 to U11, 1v1 and 2v1. Why are we not doing the same thing? And he's like, oh, well, it's a different type of. I'm like, they're a smaller country than we are. And we're telling kids to go practice and do 77 at practice. And I'm like, it's mind-blowing. And I'm like, you have a guy that has helped develop the curriculum, to help develop players, Luka Modric, whatever they have, and they've gotten to a World Cup final. They've gotten to a World Cup semifinal, Ballon d'Or winner, Nations League final. And I'm like, we're arguing with logic. I'm like, it's beyond evidence. There you go, better. And it's just like, God.
You can talk about whatever you want to, but eventually there has to be evidence.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think you're in a really interesting place. I've looked through some of your content.
Yeah.
And I think you do some really interesting things on the management side, the information side, how to manage and leverage all this. I was wondering, are you interested? The IP is yours. Would you be interested in sharing some of this on the training ground, even elaborating on some of it in some probably longer videos than what you're shooting here? And is there an interest in us sharing some of your posts on our social media? Because I think you do some really good stuff that's really practical.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'm always open to sharing ideas. I mean, like, I don't know how much you've seen of my stuff. Like, as an example, everything that I've posted, I've given away for free.
Yeah.
So an example was I put together I called it the 3% parent blueprint because, again, I have the average 97% of parents in my organization. And I go out, like, Dave, I'll go out and just watch games. Like, I'll just go to a tournament weekend. I'll just go watch. And it's like, what word do I want to use? It's disgusting how parents behave and act on a sideline.
Oh, yeah.
And so I put this content out, and it's 17 classes, and I gave the whole. I spent. I mean, my wife's over here; she could tell you the same thing. I spent 2 years putting it together, reruns, edits, fixes, and I did this all on my own time. And I was like, you know what? The impact that I want to make, at least for the majority of the content, has to be free and it has to be given to people so they can learn. So, long story short, I'd be happy to work with you guys in a capacity to help get more information out there.
Yep.
Just let me know how you want to work it. And there's things that I'm also working on in the background.
Okay.
Like keep this between you and me, but I'm building. I'm probably 50% of the way done. I am building. I'll call it a course for coaches that meet them at the grassroots level. So it's like basically all my experience, all the stuff that I've gone through as a director, as a coach, as an owner, and how to be the best practical piece for a coach to learn how to deal with parents, to learn how to deal with kids at their level, anything and everything that goes to getting kids on a field and dealing with that type of environment. I'm building that right now. I'm about 50% of the way done with it. I put 3 years of work into that so far, but I'm telling you that privately. So it's crazy, and it's like, and I got to tell you the truth. Like I have considered for the last 2 years of just backing out of coaching because I'm like, it's insane the stuff that I have to go through on a day-to-day, and you've been in it, you just know how bad it is. So it's absolutely nuts. And I've realized that I feel like my bigger role in this is to help educate parents because they're the consumer, they're the ones that are paying for this, unfortunately, and help educate coaches that are in the environment that, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I'll flip it a different way. I got a guy in my organization, great guy. He has the CONMEBOL A license. Love the guy to death. He has no idea how to deal with kids. But he has the A license. He has the A license from CONMEBOL. And he told me, he's like, Kyle, if you want, I can set you up to take that. And I'm like, you've gone through the entire CONMEBOL license pathway, and you still don't know how to deal with kids. And I'm like, I mean, I could go on all day about this stuff, bro. So it's crazy.
Well, it's not really, it's not rocket science. I think early in our careers, transitioning from playing to coaching, we take some of the experience we had with our coaches that coached us. We take some of our own values, which we now realize are a little bit of a state of flux.
Sure.
But it's not about thoroughly what you know about football and coaching. It's the interaction that you have, how the two biggest parts of that, Kyle, I think, are the interaction with the players, which when you think about how much work we're doing through technology now, no wonder we have a problem with interacting with anything.
Agreed.
And then the other part is with parents.
Yep.
And when I was in graduate school in 1983, so I was like 30 years old at that time, and the attitude was like, parents, just keep them over there.
Yeah.
But you cannot do that. I found that running high performance clubs, you can placate people, you can soft pedal it, but if you want to get at the kid and you want to get to the root of things, you have to understand that educating the parents, informing them, and then realizing they're not going to believe what you tell them.
Nope, at all.
And so, in coaches, they go, I'm just wasting my time. I said, well, you might be, but if you don't talk to them and bring them along, you're leaving it open for them to devise their own ideas about this or for somebody else to influence them.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many parents I had their kids in state teams between 89 and 99.
Yeah.
80, before being the full-time director of the state, 84, 85, who came back to me 12 or 15 years later and said, what you were talking about in terms of this, and this, you know what? I found out about 6 years in, you're exactly right. And I was like, nothing like popcorn. Not all the popcorn pops at once.
That's true.
So it taught me indirectly, because I was the most impatient. and go like,
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
Other people will see it 15 times
Yep.
and not be able to find their butt with 2 hands and a Google link.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
It's don't take it personally.
Yeah, it's just the business. It's a part of the business.
You know,
It's literally part of the business.
it's what teachers do every day in school too,
Yep.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly what happens.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I like the track you've gone down with this. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about what you think would be impactful based on what we've discussed to share with us on either social media, the training ground, if you want to elaborate on something. I think the videos for the training ground, like when we're doing activities, because everything is so activity based, coaches want to watch something for 8 minutes and then move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So I think, if you're looking at an elaboration, say, let's take this and it's going to have your branding on it. It's your IP. We're just sharing it. You do something on Zoom or whatever on your phone and translate it into an MP4, and we share it on social media, and it's 6 minutes long. And I look at your followers. You've got like 20-some thousand followers. And I think with the stuff that you're doing, if coaches had a greater exposure to it, I think that would translate into increasing your viewership. I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like just from Instagram. Instagram's been my biggest platform. I have over 36,000 followers now, but my average reach per month is between 500,000 to 2 million people. So it's actually insane. And I'll have multiple videos that'll hit 1 million views or 500,000 views, which is interesting. But it's just like I'll be transparent with you. The reason why I started even posting stuff was because about a year ago I started getting extremely frustrated, and I'm like, and I did a bunch of research. I'm like, there's nobody talking about what is actually happening at grassroots. Like, okay, do you have the exception to the rule where Christian Pulisic can leave the country at 14 or whatever age he was when he left and get to Europe? And everybody's like, oh, well, we're getting better because we have some players in Europe. Yeah, they're in Europe because they left the country. They weren't developed. I mean, they were partially developed here, but they got the hell out, and they knew they had to get the hell out. And it's. I mean, I could go on all day, but you know a guy named Mike Potempa?
Mike who?
Potempa?
I know his name. I don't know that I know him.
Okay, he used to be the main director at SEMA at Mount Verde.
Okay.
So really good guy. But anyway, so his son is the 2015. He's on my team in my program, and me and him talk all the time because he ran a program that produced multiple guys that went to professional levels or whatnot. And he's like, same. We have. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but we have a very similar philosophy in terms of how we develop kids and why we do it and what we do. And it's just like me and him will talk all the time, and it's. So I appreciate your time because I don't get to talk to many people that at least share a similar idea and at least know what it takes to actually develop kids. Because I'm dealing with parents and people that have no, pardon my French, but fucking clue to what they're doing. And like the greatest example is like when I was 24 to 26, so I retired from playing. I played quote unquote semi-professionally. So I was in France playing Division 4. They paid me a small salary. They gave me housing. They gave me all the stuff, whatever. I was trying to become a full-time pro. Yeah, I came back, started coaching, and I took a group of kids. There were 6 kids, and I took them for 2.5 years, and we did training from 6:30 a.m. to 8 o'clock every morning or 4 days a week. And 5 of them left me at some point and went on to professional clubs. So 2 went to Orlando City, 1 went to FC Cincinnati, 1 went to, he didn't make it, but he went on trial with Crystal Palace, and then 1 went to Apoel in Cyprus. And all I ever did, and the kid's still there, by the way, in Cyprus, and he's actually in 2007, he's training with the first team right now. And I'm like, fuck, it's crazy. But anyways, the point is, all I did was an hour and a half training, technique for an hour, and then 1v1, 2v2, or 3v3, and that combination, that was it. And I'm like, it's not, like you said, it's not rocket science. Just meet the kids where they are at, and that is it.
Well, if it makes you feel better, last year when I was in Bradenton, the BDFL, it was a program for 1,000 coaches to do their CEUs for their pro license and their A license. And so I had a chance to sit down with Hansi Flick and Antonio, who's the under-21 coach.
Cool.
And he said, our biggest problem at 10 years of age or 11 years of age is that the coaches at the youth level are more enchanted with how does the ball circulate?
Right.
Do
It's,
you
yeah.
pick up the ball at the right place?
Uh.
So they wanted to be the adult version of the game.
Right.
And he said, so we're fixing that. We're just playing. And the clubs,
Yeah.
the clubs are all in. They're like, we're all in. We're going to just play 2v2 and 3v3.
Right. That's it.
50% of the time. Let the kid figure out how to apply more than just what is necessary in a scaled down game model.
That's how it should be.
Let them have the experience. No, you have to become isolated in order to become self-sufficient
Right.
on what you can do and then how you improve.
Right.
So your idea is spot on.
Yeah. Well,
It's-
and
it's
I
spot on.
I tell people, I'm like, look, because for example, I coach a 2014 team, which Mike's son is on, and I have parents asking me to do more. Not, I don't want to use the word exaggerated, but like bigger theme stuff. And I'm like, your kids are 9 years old. They should be 2v1, 1v1, 3v3. I'm not touching anything else. And I'm like, and it's so funny because people always try and argue with me to do different stuff. And I'm like, do you realize who you're talking to? I'm the guy that preaches this stuff. How do you think you're going to convince me to do something different other than what I'm already doing? And what I tell the parents is, I said, look, I take your son and I put him in a 2v1 situation. Player with the ball, he has to make a decision. And the decision he has to make is based on what the opponent is giving you. Is he blocking the pass or is he blocking the dribble? And then the child has to make the best decision. And every time I've done that exact exercise in front of the parents, the kid usually picks the wrong option. And it's just like, because they haven't been taught yet with consistent, they haven't been taught with hours and hours of repetition to learn how to make the right decision. So how can I expect them to make the right decision in 7 versus 7?
Well, the parents think their kid's a street urchin.
Yep.
We don't have that many intuitive kinds of kids.
Agreed.
Because look at the way we educate them. Look at the way
Agreed.
parents interact with them.
Yep.
They don't. There's not a modicum of learning based upon failure. It's let me make this as
Protect him or her.
non-intrusive and snowplow it.
Yep.
And then you can be successful. But when one piece of that changes and it becomes more difficult, the kid cannot succeed.
Bingo. Yep.
What I'd like to do, I'm going to follow up with an email.
Okay.
And what I'd like you to do is to start to call out what in your reservoir of things you've posted,
Mhm.
and then what you might want to elaborate on. And the third part of this is, I think later in the spring, I'm going to start to put together plans for the May, June, July timeframe of webinars.
Okay.
And I think that might be you sitting in with one or two other people in a webinar. And again, that's not monetized, that's just a member benefit, to talk about some of these things.
Sure.
With other coaches. I think our membership of the Broad Basic coaches will find what you have to say interesting.
I get, it's funny because my wife gets upset at me all the time because I get on average, this is the average, there's some days more, some days less, I get 100 to 200 messages on Instagram from a parent or from a coach, asking me for advice or feedback or whatever. Or I've even, it's actually funny. I've had people find my phone number, call me and tell me I'm full of shit. So I've gotten everything and everything in between. So, it's no problem. I'm more than happy to speak to people because the message needs to be heard. People need to understand what's happening and things. And I always tell people, this is my opinion, it is unreasonable for us to expect that the United States men's national team and now probably the women's national team winning a World Cup in the future if we don't fix youth development. It just wouldn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, but it continues to get you to scratch your head.
Well,
sure.
I mean, just think about how many leagues there are now.
Yeah, I know. That's another problem. It's a major problem. So, but what I'll do is I'll follow up with the email, start thinking about some of these things. I'm so glad you took the time to meet with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
And I would just encourage you, keep doing what you're doing because I think it has value.
I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for your time and attention. And I appreciate that you enjoy the content. So that's awesome. And if you need anything from me, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can.
I will be in touch.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, Kyle. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.